Blake, these transfers you brought in, wanted to ask kind of a two-part question about them. What was your December like, if you could describe it, sort of recruiting this group? And were there specific things outside of just positional needs that you were looking for in transfers this year?
Yeah, I think it's interesting as the portals transpired over the years. I think honestly, kind of recruiting the portals become a little bit different. What I mean by that is used to be a lot more running around in-home visits. I think the kids kind of have an idea of, especially the older guys, of they already got a narrow focus. So they're maybe going on 2-3 visits, and so they don't even necessarily want you to come in their house. They're like, hey, I'm going to come see what y'all have to offer. And so it's not as chaotic as far as the travel. Now, obviously, when you have that many kids enter the portal and you're trying to narrow your focus for what you're looking for, you're watching a lot of tape, and you're making a lot of phone calls to guys that you might know in the program and trying to get an idea of what that guy brings to the table. And so to answer the second part, that's kind of part of it. We were looking for immediate players. We don't want to necessarily have to bring in guys from a depth standpoint. I think right now we're bridging that gap between our high school recruiting classes and the portal. So we wanted mature guys, guys that have played a bunch of snaps. When you look at the guys that we had brought in overall, most, if not all of them, I know some of them were coming off injuries, but for the most part, a lot of them have played a lot of football. And I think that's what we kind of lacked as we looked at our roster, is we didn't have a lot of guys that played 200, 300 plus snaps. So we wanted to be able to look for experience and obviously production.
Kind of playing off of that, specifically with Jack Pyburn, I mean, what have you seen out of him? Just seems like he's a very vocal guy, but obviously you kind of look at what he did at Florida of his career, really good at stopping the run. How does that help you with what you want to accomplish? Yeah,
Jack is, again, when you start diving into these guys from a trait standpoint and a character standpoint, it helped having Coach Raymond obviously at Florida, and when he entered the portal, he said, man, he's a dude. He's going to be a guy that you're going to have to pull back on the chain in practice because he's going to get after it. So anytime we can add toughness to our team, but I think he's an underrated pass rusher. I really do. When you go back and watch his tape, he's slippery in pass rush. He's got some quick twitch. But I think, again, it goes back to as talented as some guys are, man, we got to make sure that they're a fit culturally for what we do. And he checked every box, and he's brought so much leadership to this defense. And it was instant. Like his personality, it didn't take him a day, to start speaking up. And guys listen to him because of how hard he works. And when you work that hard, you've earned the right to talk. So he's been again, not only from a physical standpoint, but from an intangible, from a leadership standpoint, he's been outstanding.
Coach, what have you seen from the defensive line since Kyle Williams got here, and how much of an impact has he had on those guys so far?
Yeah, I think, when we sat down and Kyle and I talked, first off, we hit it off personality-wise. I think we really, really gelled. But secondly, I think, when you look at his career, and he actually brought this up to me, when he first got into the league, it was much more, capturing blocks and trying to hold blocks off linebackers and for his body type and everything, that necessarily wasn't his strong suit. But whenever he was allowed to get vertical and create havoc and knock back, that's when his career really took off and he became a Pro Bowler. And I think that's what he's bringing to our guys. This defense, forever and ever, we talk about the defensive tackles at the tip of the spear, man, and we got to be able to create knockback and havoc. And I thought we got a little stale from that standpoint last year, and that's on me. But having him do it at a high level, and then he's very, very good at articulating it to the players. I think he's done an outstanding job. I think you're already seeing that. Some of our guys being able to use their quick twitch and their get off and create havoc in the backfield. It's helped us, and they're starting to see themselves make plays. Now they're wanting to do it more and more.
Hey, Coach, kind of building off the defensive line, you not only had bringing in the transfers off the edge, but you also have a lot more depth on the interior compared to last season. Of course, Jacobian's back, and then also Ahmad Barrow and Dominic McKinley are back as well. Just talk about the depth on the interior defensive line, and what have you seen in terms of the growth from from last year to this year?
Kind of to your point, I've seen depth, which, we talk about competitive depth allows guys to be the best version of themselves that they can be. So whenever they're competing for their job, every single snap, they're going to get better. And they're the thing that's really, really cool about this defense, man, it's all about individual player development right now. We talk about in the spring, like, you might go out with the ones today. You might go out with the ones in 9-on-7, and then when we go to team, you might be with the twos. We're not worried about where you are on the depth chart right now. We don't have a depth chart. We're all striving together, and that's what's really cool about this group, man. They don't do a lot of talking. You know, they just go out there, roll up their sleeves, and they work together. Every group has become very, very tight knit.
Coach, you mentioned development. Of course, you'd like to have Harold and Witt and Princeton healthy, but how much is this spring helping guys like Devon and West and some of the other guys in that linebacker room develop more?
Yeah, I think it's been really, really good when you talk about Devon and West. They've played a bunch of snaps, but what we're doing with them, and I challenged them, at the beginning of the spring, we're actually flip-flopping them every day their position. One day they're playing Mike, then the next day they're playing Will. And that's tough, but they've answered the bell, man. So they're getting a lot of position flexibility. It's helping I tell C.J. Ross, man, when you look at Devon Keys and Ty Singleton and I believe we had one more early enrollee last year because of the depth we had. They were getting like 3 to 5 snaps a day. Like, Charles, you're getting 30, So it's been really, really good for his development. Ty Singleton's another one that, again, last spring he didn't get a lot of reps. When you get into fall, you're getting ready to play a game at that standpoint. So I kind of look at almost like this is his real first spring. So he's getting better. So it's been instrumental for those guys. It'll be interesting, whenever we bring in 3 more freshmen, we get Witt and we get Harold back, kind of putting those pieces of the puzzle together. But again, right now, focus on their individual player development. I think those guys are really coming along, and it's good for them to get all these reps.
Hey, Blake, you guys pretty clearly wanted to put an emphasis on the secondary and the transfer portal, but also the freshman class. I'm wondering if you could talk about some of the newcomers, DJ Pickett, Jakeem Jackson, Monster Delane, just a lot of the guys that you're working into the secondary, and maybe how some of the returners have helped kind of bring them along as well.
Yeah, I think when you talk about those 3 guys, in particular, they've been as good as we were hoping they were going to be. And I don't want to put, again, we're in day 8 or whatever we're in, day 9, 10. I don't even know what day we're in. But my point is those guys, from being able to pick up the scheme, from an athleticism standpoint, I mean, when you look at DJ Pickett from the first 3 bowl practices to now, he's a different animal out there, and a lot of the credit goes to him. Like, every day I go in the indoor, he's got the VR on. Like, he works at it, man. He's not. He's very, very humble. He loves football. He's very hardworking. Mansour's a guy we can put all over the secondary. He could be at corner, safety, nickel, dime. I call him the offensive guys. They got their offensive weapons. He's our defensive weapon. He's very, very intelligent. Played a lot of football, and then Jakeem is really, really good, really fast, really long. So all those guys are bringing something different to the table, and then you mix it in with Ashton Stamps, who started 12 games for us. Michael Turner has gotten significantly better as the spring has gone on. Again, when you look at him from last fall to now, I'm trying to think who else we have back there. PJ's done. I mean, and he's a defensive weapon. He's a guy, again, he's so smart, man. We put him at nickel, we put him at dime, I hadn't put him at safety yet, but he could do it in a pinch, but he's been really, really good. So really proud of that group, man. I would say it's a lot different than last year. And again, going back to the defensive tackles, man, these dudes are working together. There's no pettiness, there's no jealousy. Like, they're getting better. They're very close-knit, striving to become the best version of themselves they can be.
Coach, I know, like you said, it's early in spring, so this is not going to decide who's going to start or a depth chart or anything. But with the new faces and just the new defense that you have, what kind of identity do you want to put out there, come August or September?
Yeah, I think we're building towards that. Again, right now we're about individual development, and so, we don't have necessarily some grand plan as far as but what we always want to be, man, we want to be aggressive. We want to be creating havoc in the backfield. We want to have the ability to be able to play press man. And so I think we're building towards that. I really do. I think we got a chance to look much different than we looked last year. Again, we still got a long ways to go, but it's been exciting so far.
You mentioned the virtual reality. When we first learned about that, that was something that Jaden Daniels was using. It was really like a quarterback tool. How's that helping your defense? How are they able to use that tech?
So last year we kind of started incorporating it. Witt used it a bunch. Devon used it a bunch. And actually I met with them yesterday. They did a really, really good job of getting input from us as coaches. But what we're working on now is, and actually tomorrow we're going to start capturing some of the stuff, but like inside run fits for the linebackers. Again, like Harold's using it a ton right now for his pass drops. But we're working with them. We're going to get some inside run fits. We're looking at being able to do some blitz adjustment stuff off of it. So again, they're playing the game without physically playing the game. And then eventually, like Witt, I know last year started speeding it up a lot, like Jaden. So now you're seeing the game a little bit faster in the VR. Now the game slows down on the field for you. So it's been really cool. You know, a matter of fact, I saw Big Sting, Derek Stingley's dad, in here, and he actually ended up getting one for Sting in Houston. So I think it's catching storm. I think there's a lot of value in it. Again, like we have the walkthrough room, which is an incredible resource. This is something that they can kind of do on their own, but we can actually pinpoint where their eyes are looking, and so you can get a better feel of a coach, maybe if their keys are wrong or what they're doing wrong in an electronic standpoint.
With Jones and Swinson moving on, some new faces in the edge room this year, you talked about Pyburn a little bit. How have you seen that collective group come along between the transfers and the returnees?
Yeah, I think it's been a really good group. I think Coach Peoples does an outstanding job, but when you add a guy with Patrick Payton, who's very, very talented, again, humble, hardworking, you just touched on Pyburn. Jamari Butler's done a fantastic job. Again, Gabe Relaford, man, you talk about development from where he was, even from the bowl game to now, really, really far ahead. And then Shankling's coming along, C.J. Jackson, Kalaj Cobbins. There's not really a weak link in that room right now. Dylan Carpenter's been a little banged up, but he's getting going again. So I think that's a very deep room, very competitive room. All add something different to the table. Like each one of those guys I mentioned, man's got a little different something to their game. So it's going to be able to be a good tool, you know, using against different offensive tackles because they're not going to see the same picture every single snap.
Blake, with all the freshmen, the transfers, the players who are out, like Witt and Harold, and the returning players, what of a challenge is it to build chemistry and confidence in each other, or is it more than usual, or has it been pretty much what you faced every spring?
Yeah, every spring, again, like if you were to go take a snapshot of what 11 guys are out there together, it's very rarely going to be the same 11 guys. Again, and I keep using the term individual player development, but that's what it's about. We're going to put it together come the summer, come fall camp, as far as, you know, those guys getting comfortable playing off of each other, understand it, you know, an unspoken language sometimes when they get really, really comfortable with each other. But right now, you never know. You know, we like to play a lot of guys, and that was evident last year. We want guys to make sure that they're not too comfortable with it, so when a new face does come in there, it's like a shock to their system. So, again, we use this time mixing guys in and out and making sure that they're comfortable on their own individual responsibility right now.
Coach, last year, I remember you guys used the mantra of "we don't want poodles out there." Is that still, you know, the kind of mindset you drill into this team to, you know, make them game ready, even though it is only March?
Oh, 100%. That's something that we grade every single day, and it's a mindset. And it's again, it's not necessarily just turning down big hits. We had a young DB the other day put up his hands. You know, that's a poodle, and so it's a mindset as far as making sure that we're a brotherhood. We're not putting any weakness on tape, but that is something that we grade every single day.
Just having most of this defensive staff back together for a second straight year, what does that do, I guess, for you guys in terms of conversations of what you want to see improve with this defense throughout this offseason and going into the fall?
Yeah, it's been big, I think. And then, again, Kyle's picked it up really, really quickly. But not having to – you know, I always say the first year you put in a defense, man, there's no – and especially as multiple as we are, there's no way to see every single call versus every single offensive play. And it was the same thing when I went to Missouri from year one to year two. You're not having to necessarily teach the nuances and the exceptions, because throughout the course of the year you've kind of seen it, and especially you know, going on our second spring now. So they're able to coach those exceptions and coach those nuances before it actually happens. Where last year it usually had to show up on tape, oh, hey, by the way, this is how we defend that. So it's been really, really good. It's been really good as far as, speaking the same language. Sometimes some coaches have been doing it a long while, and, they use what terminology they had used, but I think we're all speaking the same language much more efficiently now as well.
With Harold at the start, obviously you're not able to see it on the field at the moment, but just why was that the position that y'all felt like he should play going into this season?
I just think the star is so versatile, and quite frankly, we sat down at the end of the year and I said, where are you most comfortable? And he said the star, and so he's got that capability to still allow us to be flexible, from a coverage standpoint. But I do think that he's a really, really good space player. I think, again, with that position, you're able to do a lot of different things with him, and so it'll also keep offenses not necessarily knowing where he's going to line up every single snap. Whether it be pressure, whether it be coverage, whether it be on the line of scrimmage. So we're able to do a lot of different things. That's kind of like the little secret sauce in this defense. The more position flexibility that guy gives you, the more versatile we can be on defense.
You mentioned C.J. Ross and a couple other guys, too, that you brought in this class that kind of fit the mold of hybrid safety, linebacker type players. Can you just kind of talk about what you saw in this roster, why you wanted to get guys that have that elite track speed, and where you kind of see offenses evolving to where you feel like, hey, we need this on the roster?
Yeah, it's funny, man, as the game has changed. Even, 20, 25 years ago, whenever I played, it used to be ISO and power, and you could play a backer from A gap to C gap, and you looked for the big thumper. Where, sometimes I say they don't have to necessarily be trained killers, but they got to be athletic enough to get the dude down on the ground. And so my mindset's kind of shifted. Obviously, physicality is a huge part of what we want to do. But if you can find a guy that is physical and can run really, really well, he's going to. And I don't like using the term necessarily positionless defense, but I tell our guys, man, we are multiple. You're all X's on the field. Like at some point, you could be in the star position and playing curl flat to the field or whatever the case may be. So we want guys, again, that can do multiple things. But I do think my mind, I know my mind has shifted over the last, 15 years of coaching, especially at the linebacker position. Like athleticism, they have to be physical enough, but athleticism is the name of the game. Offenses are spreading you out in space. They're getting you in RPOs. They're trying to find the matchup, right? And they're trying to put a linebacker on a slot receiver. So we got to be able to match with that speed. And so that's going to be a hallmark of what we bring in. I'm huge on documented track times. If they're able to show us, one, that they're competitive enough to run track, and then two, they actually have really good times, it kind of solidifies that that they can run. Sometimes when you evaluate tape, you might not know the level of competition they're playing against. They look really, really fast, and then they get here, and it's like, not so fast, So it is something we look for multiple sport athletes as well, from an athleticism standpoint. So, and the proof's in the pudding. When you look at the NFL, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I say it's like 80% first-round draft picks were multiple sport athletes in high school. So it's something that we really, really look for when we're recruiting a player.
Hey, Coach. About the safeties, of course, you bring in DeMarcus Cooley, but it seems like all the second-year guys have really stepped up. Deshaun Spears, Javian Toviano, and even Joel Rogers has looked great out there. What have you seen from that group so far this spring?
Exactly what you just said, development. Nobody was harder on Deshaun Spears last year than me. And it's starting to pay off. The dude is making a ton of plays out there. Toviano, to me, I thought from a coaching standpoint, I think he's finally settled into what he really is. We had him at corner. We had him at nickel. I think he's a safety, and he's tackled outstanding. He's had a really good spring. Joel's gotten better. And I think Coach Olson's done a really good job, man. He's stuck with it. The kids have stuck with the process, and it takes time. I always say everybody wants to, it's like an instant oatmeal. They want an instant player. They want to pour the water in and mix it up, and boom, here it comes. It's not always that simple, especially at this level, and especially for what we ask our safeties to do. So I'm really, really proud of that room. I think they're coming along. Tamarcus has been a great addition. Adds some really good speed in the back end for us, and he's played a lot of football, again, going back to what we looked for in our transfers. So I think that room's coming along. Still got a ways to go, but they have definitely gotten better from last year. Yep.
You touched on Kyle Williams already to an extent, but it's the guy who hadn't coached in college before. So during that process, what really impressed you about him that makes you decide this is the guy we want?
To be honest with you, it had to do with style of play. Again, he's lived it, he breathed it, he did it at a high level. And I know he hadn't coached college, but when you look at what he did at Ruston, I think they went to 3 state championships. He's got a great football mind. He was a coordinator there, so he sees the big picture. But more than anything, I think our personalities really, really meshed well, and I think that's important. I always want to recruit. I always want to be able to hire good people. It starts with guys that are good people and build really good relationships with the players, because if you don't have that, you don't have anything. But then the second part of it was his style of play and how we want to play our defensive tackles matched up really, really well with what we want to get done inside. So it's been a really good match. Good. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.